well-known libertarian Republican Ron Paul is back with us. Ron, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me on.
You know, why do I have a better relationship with Rand Paul than you? I mean, we showed it the other night on TV. All your supporters throwing snowballs at me. What did I do to you? I never went after you.
Well, I mean, they thought you were friendly and would engage in a friendly snowball fight. I mean, they thought you were. See, my crew of people are very, very young, and they're young at heart, and they still play. And did you ever have a snowball fight when you were a kid?
Listen, you don't want to know how much trouble I got in with snowballs when I was young. The list is too long here for this program.
Okay.
You know, it's funny because we got a lot of reaction to you being on TV the other night, and we always appreciate having you on, and thanks for being with us. And by the way, I did enjoy your book, and I've now completed it. And it really is. It's called Liberty Defined: 50 Essential Issues That Affect Our Freedom. And you go through everything, starting, right on down the line: abortion, assassination, economics, the CIA, civil disobedience, on and on and on, executive power. I view you more as a libertarian, and we were discussing this a little bit the other night, more than a Republican, and I think you actually do too, in a way, right?
Well, I don't think the choices between libertarian beliefs and being a Republican, if you're saying the Libertarian Party,
yeah.
I've spent essentially all my life except for 1 year in the Republican Party. My family is Republican, and I've been elected 10 times or so to the Congress as a Republican, and I'm in a Republican Congress. So I think of myself with libertarian views, but then you have to ask, what does libertarian views mean? And if you believe in liberty, you have a lot of libertarian beliefs. You might not fit into that category, but I think the founders were libertarian. They didn't advocate, regulating personal behavior, and they advocated, a non-interventionist foreign policy, and they advocated the gold standard, and they advocated, most importantly, was a Republican form of government where you didn't have a big national government. And you and I should agree on that.
We totally
agree.
Have
we want our federal government small, but we're on a movement now. This is why we should all be allies, because the move on now is toward a new world order. A big government. I don't like the idea that the UN can give our president the authority to go in and start another war in Libya. See that stuff.
I'm totally with you. Why do we have to go to? Frankly, I'd get out of the UN. It's anti-Semitic and it's anti-American.
Well,
I agree with you there.
I have a bill to do that, but that's really not going to be on the agenda.
I wish it would be. I mean, we're paying all this money into the United Nations. By the way, for a country that's going bankrupt, we sure have enough money to kick around there. And this is where you and I think, have a lot of agreement on economic issues about the role of government in our lives. I think you remind people about our Constitution, those principles. I mean, there's not much we disagree on. And I, frankly, I'm looking at the Republican Party, and I think they're going too deep into half measures at a time when we need some bold colored differences, if you will, to quote Reagan. I was not happy with the 2011 budget deal. I'm afraid they'll cave on the debt ceiling battle. I'm worried about the Fed. Bernanke scared the living daylights out of me the other day.
That's good to hear. I'm glad you're with us on that one.
By and large, I'm looking to the Republican Party to be the conservative party in the country. And, those bold differences that Reagan talked about is what I want to see. You find yourself often at odds with the Republican Party. I mean, how can we...
Because I don't think they're good conservatives is the reason. But, it's all a matter of what you're conserving. The conservatives in the Soviet system were the ones that wanted to maintain the status quo of communism. The liberals were the ones who wanted liberal changes. So they're tricky words. I don't think the labels are a very good way to do it. I call them if I had one word to describe myself in all the affairs of government, it would be non-intervention. I don't want the government intervening in your economic life, in your personal life. I don't like intervening in the internal affairs of other nations, and I think that's a good word. And you may say, well, you go too far. I like a little intervention here and there. So it's a variation of intervention. The total anarchist would say there's no government and there's no intervention, which I am not. But the conservative sometimes says, well, we got to intervene a little bit here and a little bit there, and we got to mold the world a little bit better. And there are some things that people do when they have total freedom that I frown upon. They shouldn't be gambling and they shouldn't be smoking, a few things like that. But the libertarian says non-intervention is a strict rule, except when somebody does something that hurts another. I would give you your liberty to do what you want, even if it hurts yourself. I cannot protect you from yourself, and government shouldn't ever try. And that's especially the liberals are always trying to protect us from ourselves. And I've had congressmen tell me, asking them a question, why are you voting for this? And he says, the people are too stupid. We have to do this for them. And that is the attitude of some liberals. And so I think that's a good word to toss around.
Well, and maybe this is where you and I separate here, but you did say something that I think is important before we talk about some of our differences here. And I really want to give you as much an opportunity to express your views as every other candidate, and because I think, you're going to add significantly to the debate, and I think whoever ultimately comes out with the nomination, I want them to be a strong conservative. And, you said something that, look, we're literally watching an onslaught of socialism taking over the country, and in that sense, I think it's got to be a moment of all hands on deck, even though we might have minor disagreements. You agree with that?
Oh, sure. I think that I think coalition building. See, I think there's a big difference between coalitions. For you and I to work together, I don't think you have to sacrifice any of your principles nor mine. But if we agree, say, on the economic issues, then you and I should work together. But I do this because sometimes I think the left have a better position, on some of the civil liberties. And then so I work a coalition with them. They might say that our government shouldn't assassinate people without a trial. And right now, that is the policy. I can't imagine any American supporting it, but it's there, and it's people accept it and say, well, it won't be me. It's only assassinate those bad guys.
Well, it's Executive Order 12333 that prevents that from happening.
Well, it's theoretically, but Obama, his administration has announced that when there is an American citizen that we have no other alternatives and we can't get him into court, our goal, our purpose, our responsibility is to assassinate him. But that was announced in a committee.
Yeah,
hearing.
But I got to be honest, don't put me in the position of defending Obama, because there are some of the world dictators which I would drop up, like Reagan when he dropped the bomb on Gaddafi's house. Whoops, sorry, I thought that was the right thing to do. But I don't want to get off on a tangent here. The biggest area of disagreement, we have two areas of disagreement with you, and I just want to air them out a little bit here. Well, when you were on the program the other night, you kind of took me aback because on, for example, the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, I know we disagree, but you seem to suggest that somehow it was our policies that caused these radical extremists to hate us. And I want to give you a chance to expand on that, because this war on terrorism, this battle, this caliphate, this desire for worldwide Sharia goes back many, many, many years. And I don't think there's anything that America did to cause this war on terror, except now we're defending ourselves.
Yeah, I think that exists always to some degree in all religions. But when they have an incentive and can build up anger and hatred toward their enemies that they would like to build it, they get more converts. So when we go into a country, say like Iran, and install the Shah, who is our puppet, to protect our oil interests, those radicals use that and say, see what the United States does? They come in and they took over and they're taking over the oil. So people who then use religion, and then the Ayatollahs, get enough source. So finally the blowback comes, and the blowback comes with the overthrow of the Shah and the holding of the hostages. So you don't blame America, you don't blame the American people, but you blame bad policies. And this is so well known. The CIA is they're the first ones who coined the word blowback, and even in the 9/11 report, they recognized this, and they said that the base in Saudi Arabia was an important issue that motivated the terrorists, and our government said, okay, when they took that base out immediately after 9/11, but they didn't understand that bombing Iraq was similar to having a base. But Sean, the best way to look at this is if you think the motivation is good and these guys are bad guys and we got to go over there and bomb and kill somebody, well, what if somebody decides, what if China gets a little bit stronger and us a little weaker? And what if China would do this to us?
No, but this is
we would all get together. Nobody would argue. We would despise the invaders and the occupiers, and I think it's an understanding of human nature that's so important. But I think where we disagree is
I don't buy that comparison, though, Congressman. Because I think there's got to be great distinctions here. I mean, there are times there is evil in this world. You know, we've seen 100 million people killed in the last century alone. When you see the rise of Nazism, for example, I think we have a moral obligation at some point. You know, it's going to involve us, and it's also, I think we have some level of responsibility when people are being slaughtered to step in. It's a very fine line. We can't be the world's policeman, but there are certain instances where I think it's very crucial geopolitical interest of the United States. And I don't see that the United States of America has been anything really but a big help in Kosovo, in Kuwait, in Iraq, in the Muslim world. I think we have sacrificed financially, blood, sweat, and tears. And, you know, the idea that radical extremists want to use one issue or another to justify their hatred and their extremism, I don't buy that we're responsible for that. I think it's pre-existing, and there's a real, clear, present danger of Islamic extremism to this country and to the world.
Well, I guess that's where we're going to disagree, because going into these various places defies constitutional authority, and it defies, logic and advice of the founding fathers. And I don't see any benefit for us to do this. And there's problems all around the world, and you just can't solve all those problems. We didn't go into China when they were killing their own people.
But constitutionally, don't we need Congress to offer their support for any declaration of war? I don't want to get into a battle over the War Powers Act, but if Congress authorizes the use of force, it's a legitimate military action if deemed necessary by the president at that point. And that was given to President Bush.
Yeah, but even
so constitutionally, I mean, it means it stands up to muster.
It was better than Obama, but it started even with Truman and going into Korea, go in the UN, NATO, loss of sovereignty. Well, let me ask you one question.
Go ahead. You host the program. I'll be a guest. Go ahead.
Okay, I want to ask one question. Is Woodrow Wilson a hero of yours?
No. Were you out of your mind?
Well, okay, but Woodrow Wilson is that foreign policy that we're following. His whole theme was making the world safe for democracy. He got us involved when we shouldn't have been involved, which led to World War II. So we see him as really a serious problem. Now, you say, well, you use the analogy about Hitler. Hitler declared war against us. No, nobody. And to throw that out and say, well, my policy means I don't want to fight Hitler, I don't think that's a fair comparison.
Well, I just think that if we see that the world, and that's just an extreme example. The 9/11 Commission report, which you cited, said they were at war with us. We weren't at war with them. So at that point, after the embassy bombings, Kenya, Tanzania, the USS Cole, the first Trade Center bombing, we didn't do anything. And if they're at war with us, they've declared it, and they're saying it openly and then acting on it, we've got to fight back.
You have to ask, why have they declared war against us?
It's not, but are you saying
sincerely? They believe sincerely that we were the initiator. Now, you may disagree with that.
What do you agree? Wait. This is important. Do you agree? Do you think we initiated this hostility towards us? Because I believe that we've been ever so kind to the Muslim world, honestly, and we've sacrificed greatly for the Muslim world.
I think we are 6,000 miles away from home, and we've killed a lot of people. Right now, we're killing innocent people.
But look at how many lives we've also saved. I mean, I've given you a whole bunch of examples: Kuwait, Kosovo. You name all these countries. Indonesia. Who was the first country to go to their aid after their tsunami? It was the United States. The United States has literally helped these emerging democracies and countries at a time when no one else would help them.
Okay, I guess we need a mathematician to add them up, because, when Madeleine Albright was asked about how many children died from American policy in Iraq, she says she agreed about 500,000, but that's the price you have to pay. And the Muslim world believes that. She even confirmed it. And if you don't think that's enough to people get angry, then there's no way for us to do much on counting. But I think statistically, if you counted the innocent life versus the few bad people we kill, right now our enemy is the Taliban, because they represent radical Islam. But the Taliban is not Al-Qaeda. The Taliban are the people that
they're aligned and connected with Al-Qaeda, and they also harbor Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and all throughout the region.
Why though can we tolerate a policy where they were our allies? And Saddam Hussein used to be our ally when Bush or Reagan was president. You know, this is the stuff that I just go nuts over. You know, once again, you can be their best friends of these vicious dictators. They turn around and then it's all our fault or their fault. You know, I just think we should stay out of it. Because
I don't think it's. I'd love to have that worldview, and I got to run here, and I'm not trying to steal the last word, but a geopolitical, long-term strategic interest of the United States, I think to stay out of it, and then eventually, I'm telling you, we will be brought into it. And I think sometimes you've got to cut your losses earlier and understand for example, not to allow Iran to get nuclear weapons is a huge mistake in my view. But listen, Ron Paul, we do appreciate you being on. I did enjoy your book, and I appreciate, as always, your time. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Bye-bye.